This is a financial astrology video. It's going to be a little bit more complicated than maybe what we're used to, but I think we'll do okay. We're going to examine a concept that Robert Hand Jr., who's a rather famous astrologer, his father certainly was famous in the financial astrology field. He was an astrologer in the very early 1900s who also traded various markets using heliocentric astrology. His son became an astrologer and became one of the founders of Astrolabe, which made the popular Solar Fire and Nova software. He also created one of the first financial astrology trading software. I think it was called Astrolabe even, but anyway, I know for sure that the very first financial astrology software I ever used was coded by Robert Hand Jr. And this is an article he wrote in 1991. It appeared in the 1992 Gene Long Almanac, and it was called Planetary Trendlines and Intersections. If you want a copy of that article, I don't believe they have hard copies anymore. I own a hard copy, but they might have it in PDFs or some digital format. The software I'll be using to demonstrate these techniques is done using Timing Solution. In this article, he starts off by introducing Gann angles and bands, which I'm sure most of you have heard of, as having a definite relationship between time and price movements. Now, I don't think you need me to read this at you. This is too common, and he's over here showing what the various Gann angles are. Gann fans are made up of Gann angles, and the very first chart in the article was simply a demonstration of the Gann angles on a 1980s Dow Jones chart. And then he had this little table right here. But then we get into the good stuff. He introduces a premise that might be controversial. He said that the Gann lines are really approximations of astronomical motions in which degrees of motion and longitude, and not days or other time periods, were actually the units to be equated with time. In other words, the usual Gann aphorism about the relationship between time and price was not quite correct. The actual connection is between planetary motion and price. Now, it's pretty well known that Gann and Robert Hand's father met, and I wouldn't be surprised, although I have no proof, just a speculation, because I've read a number of Robert Hand's articles, and from my familiarity with this process, I wouldn't be surprised if he knows more than he's letting on, that in point of fact, this is really coming from father to son. But before we start going into the examples, and you'll be able to come back to this page in the video, he makes certain assumptions that he calls general principles of the relationship between planetary movement and price trend lines. Trend lines, now these are planetary trend lines, tend to form with slopes that correspond to the movements of the planets in longitude, such that the same simple unit of price corresponds to a degree of longitude. Now, this is interesting because this is, if you're familiar with planetary lines, that's pretty much how we draw them. The only references we have to of Gann writing about planetary lines, he actually might be describing exactly this, because if you read the quotation, he's not saying to just plot it. He could actually be doing his Gann angle according to planetary longitude, and I think in a couple of minutes you're going to see very clear examples of that. Trend lines don't only form at the rate of one price unit per degree of motion, but also at multiples of price unit per degree. In other words, you can get this. You can get a 1 by 1, which would be 1 degree for one price unit, or you can get a 1 by 2 or a 2 by 1. So that's all he means with general principle number 2. I left out the letter H there, I see. Anyway, principles 1 and 2 allow for both upward and downward moving trend lines, planetary trend lines. And this, I'm sure any Gantt student or fan will recognize principle number 4, where he says his own principles 1, 2, and 3 also tend to cause major highs and low prices to be functions of previous major high and low prices based on the movements of planets in longitude between subsequent highs and lows. For example, anniversary dates, any type of things that you would call a vibration. In other words, the current major high and low that you may be looking at is somehow related to prior major highs and lows. That's what principle number 4 is about. And he's saying he found a way to connect them with planetary longitude. So we're going to go off. At this point in the article, Robert shows his first planetary trend line. Let's take a look. We'll draw it together. For timing solution users, I'll show you exactly how to draw this one. So this chart we're looking at right now is from the middle of 1987 to the end of 1991. I'm going to do it exactly the way he did it in his article. I'm not going to show anything current time. That could be another video in the future, but right now, this article is so good and it's so clear that I don't think you're going to have any trouble reproducing it on current market data. So we're going to take this point right here, the high in August of 1987, the end of the bull market that started in November 1982. And as you can see, we had this major crash in October of 1987. To draw the first planetary trend line, we go to this icon right here. And we select planetary fan. And I'm going to draw it. And we're going to open it up. And we're going to select the Jupiter line. Now, I'll give you some rules to follow at the end of this video. It's not going to be that complex to know which planets to use, as you'll see. And everything is in helio. Robert Hand never did anything other than helio. 1 degree equals $1. Click OK. Let's modify this just so you can see it a little bit clearer. That didn't quite I thought I had erased these. Apparently I didn't. We also want to see the mirror. Click OK. Yeah, maybe I need to scroll this a little more so you can see it. And just got it in there. So this is the high. And as you can see, this Jupiter 3 line caught the very top of a 3-year 4-month rally. 3 years and 4 months, and this was the high. So this is just very preliminary. And the same exact mirror image planetary fan line caught the 2 major corrections before the high was reached. So this was just something that Robert Hand said as he was investigating this technique. This was the first thing that caught his eye. He thought this was very interesting. But he noted a problem. If a market moves along a planetary trend line for a period of time, how can we tell when it is going to change trend and start following another line? So now we're going to draw 2 more planetary trend lines, Venus and Mars. And again, I realize you might be wondering, well, how do I know which planets to use? We'll cover that at the end. So now we need to, I already drew these so we don't have to waste people's time. Now that you know how to draw this one, you'll be able to, we'll look at the inners of these. So let me show you what I have here. I have a Mars, helio, 1 degree equals $1. First harmonic. Everything pretty much after this will be first harmonic. For the major highs, major lows of the prior bull market or the prior bear market. After it's over, we're extending the planetary line into the next major bull or bear market, and you'll do that with Jupiter and Saturn within the bull or bear market that you are currently in, not referencing the prior one, but the bull or bear market that you're currently in. You'll be using Mars and Venus in Helio. And the second one, Venus, same thing, Helio, 1 degree equals $1, first harmonic. Let's take a look at what Robert Hand noticed. First thing he noticed, and we'll explain why he drew them here in a moment, is that the Mars line seems to have been catching the corrections, and then the Venus line, when the market accelerated, the Venus line took over, and what made him even more convinced that there was something here was that when price finally broke through the trend line here, it acted as resistance. It acted as resistance until it hit the Jupiter line, and that was basically the end. Now we're going to go a little bit more into depth now as to why he drew them the way he did. Let me make this so it's easier to see. Make that a little thicker, the Jupiter line. It might be a little bit too faint for you to see clearly. So now you can, the Jupiter-Mars intersect there. Let me get that. That's not right on the top. There we go. Now you can see it a little better now that it's catching within a few days. Now let's go on with the rest of the article. Now this was just a direct quote I'm giving you. If you don't agree with it, don't blame me. I didn't write it. But I think most people will find this interesting. He says, incidentally, the Mars +1 line is quite close to a daily 2x1 Gann line drawn from the same point, but the Mars line does a better job of showing the lows. He concludes the section by saying, trend changes tend to occur when the planet that governs the trend is aspected by another planet, especially if that planet, he means the aspecting planet, has also been influential in governing trends in that time period. Mars has been governing the longer trend, Venus the shorter trend. So what this means is you want to look at Mars-Venus aspects. So that's what we're going to do, and we'll find out why he drew the trend lines where he did and how they helped in picking the final tops of this bull run from the late 1987 to about the end of 1990. I need to go into the Universal Language Editor, edit, aspects, we're there. We're going to select Venus. We're going to select Mars. We're going to select Helio, right there, it's Helio. We're going to select find the culmination of the aspect, and we're interested in the 60s. Now, you may say 0 is not 60. Well, we're dealing with a 360 circle. So it's 60, 120, 180. 240 will be contained within the 120. And 0 is really the same as 360 because we're dealing with the circle. The beginning and the end point of the circle are the same. Add it. Calculate it. Nice and fast. Now let me just put in a couple of more. I drew some text messages to make this a little easier to understand. I hope I made it easier to understand. This is an attempt here. So just verify that. Yeah, that looks okay. He, in his article, states that, for example, he drew them right on the, that would put it there. But anyway, I'm not sure when I did this earlier, it intersected right on, no, there, it is there. Hold on. All right, let me just leave it there. So these are Venus-Mars aspects, the vertical purple lines. And he said he used them as his guideline in drawing, when they culminated, his trend lines. That's what's stated in the article. You can see at the very top, in August of 1987, we had a Venus-Mars aspect. We had the high, and that's where he drew this from, the absolute high. Venus opposite Mars, Venus trine Mars. And we can see that the high here, the high of this 3-year and a couple of month rally, was at these two planetary trend lines and on a Venus-Mars aspect. Looks like it's to the day. He also noted that this Venus trend line was rising and holding the rally very nicely. You can see all the times it touches, but when it failed on a planetary trend line fails right here. Let me grab that if I can. Right there, planetary trend line fails at a Venus trine Mars helio aspect. So that gives us a little bit more insight into what he's doing. In other words, the trend lines that you're drawing and the planetary aspects that you're using, they should be the same planets, and it also should be the same planet. You should see it from at the major high or low of the prior bull market or bear market. See, this is a new bull market here. This bull market ended here. It should have that same planetary aspect of the planets you're using here. So you get some nice symmetry there. So that pretty much is what he was trying to say in this section. Now we're going to go on to the next section called Planetary Trendline Intersections. And it's showcasing a change in trend method. And what he's saying here is when the major vibratory planetary trend lines, which he believes are comparable to Gann angles, of Jupiter are intersected by the planetary trend lines of Venus and Mars, sometimes changes in trends happen. So we'll take a look. I already have them drawn. We'll look at 8991 with several Venus +1 PTLs. So I'll have to scroll the chart, but you can see I also have to expand our Jupiter line. Right now I only drew 3 and 4, but we also need 1 and 2. First harmonic, second harmonic, third harmonic, fourth harmonic. Click OK. Now you got a lot of lines. This point, for example, let's just start over here. This is the first intersect right there. Let me get a crosshair. Would it be worthwhile? So I think you know where I'm drawing them from, so to make it easier to see, let's expand this. This is the first intersect of a Jupiter line and a Venus line right here. And we can see that that's a pivot, top of a swing, and then we correct it. The second intersect is right here. It's just like a planetary aspect. It comes first, and then actually, I don't think I need to get into that. I don't want to make this more technical than it already is. This is the next intersect of a Venus planetary trend line with a Jupiter trend line. We have a pivot again. This is the intersect. Again, pivot. So this intersect right here, not much happened. So we'll let that one go. And this one right here, it's really in the it did capture this you see this very quick 1-day drop. But again, would you have traded that? Probably not. But over here we have another one very nicely here. The Jupiter line is acting as a support, the Venus line is acting as support, and they're also intersecting at the same time. They're supporting prices, and that's just a beautiful example of, I think, what Robert Hand is talking about. Now, over here, I think it's a little bit, 3 days early from this major top. 3 days early. But this is an interesting one. I'm not exactly sure how. When he drew, I'm probably, when I drew these, because I had the chart, I can see that already here. I'm off by a day or two. So, at any rate, in Robert saying it's a chart in the article, this was only about 2 days off. Here it's about 5 or 6 days off the intersect. But you also have a Venus Mars aspect right there. So this is a pretty good example right here of a resistance, planetary aspect, another resistance line. So the intersect is here, but when you look at the resistance lines and everything, plus I think I drew it maybe just not as accurately as if I had zoomed in. Over here, the market just kind of, it's a major fall. The market just halted its fall here. Let's keep going. And we have another Venus line here. We have 3 lines intersecting here, and we got again right here another pivot. Keep going to the right. The market goes out of again, this is something that actually I like more than I think the average trader. Some of this stuff looks really good, like this, where you're picking the exact pivot. But it's actually more lucrative and much easier to trade, especially psychologically and emotionally, is when you have a sideways market and you trade the breakouts. You trade the breakout of a sideways market. So over here, it's going to be hard to tell because we entered a major congestion area. What happened? But so far, I think you've got the general idea of what Robert Hand is trying to show. This is a nice one. It's a Jupiter line and a Venus 1 line. That's a pretty good one. Here, it's going to be very hard to tell. I mean, it looks like it's catching that to the day, but I wouldn't try to press that point. Now, he also made a point that before this market started, again, moving up, and that this Venus 1 line caught this. So it caught the market once, and then it caught the market again. He made a point to that in the article. Now, I think there's just one last thing for me to show you. Yeah. The bull market started in late 1982, and he used the Mars PTL line. And we're going to take a look at that. I just want to see if there's anything. Yeah, we'll draw. I didn't draw this. We'll draw this one together. But let me make this a little bit easier to see. Okay. If you want to know what I'm doing, I'm going to make this fan a little, I'm going to make it red for Mars and make it thicker. And I'm going to compress the chart all the way. This yellow circle at the, you know what? Just give me another moment here. Let's make this easier to see. We don't need the Venus aspects anymore. So he's saying that, this is in the eye of the beholder, he has this Mars line drawn from the beginning. So I would have drawn a Saturn or Jupiter line here, but he in his article has Mars, and I just want to reproduce what he has. And over here, This is a concept that I'll get into when I do my planetary line videos, that these planetary trend lines and planetary lines are very close. And one of the things a planetary line is good for is capturing the speed at which a market moves, and then a harmonic of it can catch the acceleration periods. But that's for another video. For right now, we can see support, and over here you can see after this bull market was over that the fall of the 1990 mini crash, and I was actually trading this. I mean, I didn't trade I was sitting in front of my monitor while the market was crashing, but I was trading when this happened, and I was a full-time trader by the time this happened. So I remember this period in time, and this was a mini crash, and you can see it ended right on the Mars line and the intersect of the Jupiter line with that Mars line. I think there's just one last part that he wants us to do. The 1990 high and the 1990 low. Do I have that? I think I do, actually. No, he's still using. I'm looking at the chart. All right, let's do this. See, we're learning together. I can bullshit my way out of anything. No, I'm actually trying to. Let's undo these, and we're going to zoom in to 1990. And he wants a Jupiter line from the, we can do this. Oh yeah, we can do this. Planetary fan, swatch it, select Jupiter, Helio, 1 degree equals $1. And he let me just see what you see. All right, he's got a 1, 2, and a 3, and we'll do the exact same thing he's doing. We'll go to line style. We'll keep it the same color. I don't really need the 3, but he's got it, so I'm just going to leave it in there. So he's saying, okay, this was a mini crash, which means I can apply my Jupiter line here, and the Jupiter line should have some effect on major rallies, and it seems to almost here, definitely here, and definitely here. Now he's saying go to the 1990 low. I just want to make sure I don't screw this up, so I'm going to look at the actual article, and busy. So he's got some stuff drawn that goes out into the middle 1990s, even though this article was written in October 1991 and there's no price data there. So I'm just going to show where we've got price. And we're going to use this low and see what happens. Venus, Helio, $1. You only want the first harmonic. Line style. And I have to move it over. And what? Okay, I see what he's doing. He's just showing that it acted as support resistance here. Caught the market. Very similar to the way the Mars line from the 1982 beginning of the bull market was catching. And then it caught this major reaction here. Now, if you're a timing solution user, for practice, timing solution ships with the Dow Jones data going back to, I think, the 1920s. So you can reproduce all this on your own and then start doing some experimenting like maybe with that 1982 low, use a Saturn line instead and see what happens. You could probably also draw a Jupiter mirror and see if you get any intersects. We're just using first harmonic here, but you can use the second, third, fourth, and just see what kind of interesting stuff you get after you zoom in. To close the presentation, I just wanted to share that. Again, I think we covered this and you already know it, but for the major highs and lows of the prior bull or bear market, Helio, Jupiter, or Saturn, when you're within the bull or bear market, Venus and Mars, Helio. And that's true to the present day, but I'll let you find that out on your own. Thanks for listening.